Living Local Carolina with Katie Turner. Local trends, shopping, dining, and more. This is Living Local Carolina.
Welcome back to Living Local Carolina. Today I'm joined by Dr. Anthony Thompson. How are you doing?
Doing quite well, Katie. And yourself?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good.
I wanted to talk to you about your story and who you are.
Okay. Well, my story could be very lengthy, but I'm going to make it as short as possible. Maybe a few details, but my story, of course, began with Emanuel, the '99 tragedy, which my wife, during that night, was her first time teaching Bible study. And of course, the white supremacist by the name of Dylan Roof came in and joined in with the Bible study. Sat down, had prayers with them, and interacted with them, and then decided to kill them all, my wife being included. So that was a turning point in my life where I just threw in the towel. I mean, literally. From pastoring, from the ministries that Myra and I had together, my late wife Myra and I had together, mentoring kids, and just a lot of things. I just told God that was it. I didn't want to do those things anymore, but he just kept coming at me. And one thing about him, he'll never forsake you, because I didn't want him around, but he just kept coming. And 48 hours after that, we had this bond hearing. Because prior to that, we didn't know who committed the crime, we didn't know who it was, and all of a sudden we have this bond hearing. My daughter's telling me they found the young man who killed her mom, and the bond hearing's today, and I'm like, I'm not going, Well, for me, a bond hearing wasn't a new experience, because I was a probation agent for 27 years.
Wow.
Retired from that, and I carried a lot of people to bond hearings. You set a bond, they go back to the cell. So I didn't see it to be very significant. Of course, God had other plans. And my daughter just kept coming at me. We ended up at the bond hearing, and I told them literally, don't say one word. We're going to keep our mouths closed. Because this is the first time we encounter a situation like this. And whatever you say, you're going to hear it again. And lo and behold, the magistrate asked, is there anybody here from the Myra Thompson family? Like, you gotta be kidding. And didn't want to speak, but the Lord said, get up, I have something to say. Now, mind you, I knew it was him because the night before, I want to say 48 hours before then, I was on the ground literally crying like a baby.
Yeah.
And this voice was saying, get up, but it was a very harsh voice. 3 times, and I got up, realized that's who it was. And so when I heard this voice in the courtroom again saying, get up, I have something to say, I just threw wasted time. And didn't want to argue with him, just got up. And I'm headed to the podium. I'm not hearing anything. I'm saying, okay, you set me up here. You better have something to say, because I have nothing to say. And I was about to turn back around, because he convicted me, called me a sinner. And I'm like, seriously? But I didn't do this. No, you didn't do it, but, I died for you and I died for Dylan. I mean, he carried me through the whole gamut. It was like I was there for maybe days, just standing there. Well, it was just for a short time. And he just kept coming at me about he died for me, he died for Dylan. I'm a sinner, Dylan's a sinner. And I'm like, you know what? I didn't come up here to tell anybody that. I'm not gonna tell anybody that, it's between you and I. But he just kept coming at me, and it just took me back. And I started thinking about the fact that I am a pastor, and I had a church that they needed to know I was okay. And I needed to do what pastors do. And so literally my mouth just opened. It's like somebody opened it for me, and I just told him, I said, son, I forgive you. My family forgives you. We would like you to take this opportunity to repent, give your life to the one that means the most, Christ. So, because you're in a lot of trouble right now. Things are going to happen to you really bad. But he can change your heart, he can change your attitude. And if you do that, no matter what happens to you, you're going to be okay.
We'll be back right after this break with more Living Local Carolina.
You know, to make a long story short, I'm looking at my fingers because it's like things coming out of my fingers. I don't see anything. I thought maybe I'm having a heart attack or something. I'm grabbing my chest, and immediately, I mean, I felt like light as a feather. I mean, it was over. My sadness, the anger I had, the hate I had in my heart was all gone. I mean, I had this peace that came over me like nothing else. And the peace that they talk about in the Bible, that peace that surpasses all understanding in Christ, it is real.
Wow.
That's what I do. I want people to know it's real. I have it now. I was able to just move forward in my life, you know, and that's why I'm able to move forward now and have been moving forward ever since. And that's where the peace came from. But mind you now, that was not all of it. I'm on my way to the seats, and he's telling me now you have a new mission. That mission is to spread the gospel of forgiveness. Of course, my answer was, no, I can't do that. You know, it took 2 months for that to happen, but it happened. I'm literally at home telling him I'm not going to do it because he's been coming at me. I mean, 2 months going by, he's still coming at me, and I'm like, this is not going to happen. You know, I'm still mourning, you know, the death of my wife. I just buried her. You know, why are you putting this on me? Besides, who's going to listen to me? Nobody want to hear about forgiveness. And I literally fell on the floor crying. Somehow I made it to my bed. Woke up the next morning by a phone call. Phone call was from a pastor named Reverend Dr. Marshall Blaylock, First Baptist Church, downtown Charleston, predominantly white church. And he says, Reverend Thompson, I need you to do something for me. I'm like, what? He said, I want you to come to my church and give the message on forgiveness. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. Yes. And so that's where it started. It started there. You know, God had his way. I've been doing it ever since, abroad, across the United States. And then, in my pursuit of trying to fulfill this mission of spreading the gospel, I was invited to an event, Stone Mountain, Georgia, where there's an organization called One Race Movement. And pretty much at that time, they were trying to reconcile people in their city together as far, and in the state of Georgia, you know, because a lot of, you know, like any place else, a lot of divisions, you know. And so they invited me to do participate in the forgiveness section. This was like a 3-day event. Stone Mountain was, I mean, completely just, I mean, must have been 30,000 or more people out there. Oh yeah, that was, I mean.
Oh my goodness.
It was packed. We had the whole park. I mean, even the mountain, on top of the mountain is where the forgiveness part took place. And so I'm walking up the mountain. I'm looking back and I see all these people coming up the mountain. But the thing that really amazed me and the thing that really filled my heart was I saw about 2,000 millennials coming up that mountain. I'm like, oh my God. And they were coming, praising God, singing. I mean, crying. I mean, you could see the Spirit, look, was in it. I mean, you could feel the Spirit. And I was just amazed, you know. And you had this diverse group of people, young, old, black, white, Latino, Asian. I mean, in all denominations, you know. Some were priests were wearing the collars and some weren't. Then you had rabbis up there, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I mean, it was great. And so I'm saying to myself, you know, man, you know, this is what Charleston means. Yeah. Yeah. And then we went to the forgiveness part. And everybody asked the rabbis to forgive them for what happened at the Holocaust. Yeah. And they just burst out in tears, and that everybody else just burst out in tears. I mean, because it was like a joy of actually, people actually sort of repenting, you know, confessing. And then this young pastor, Farrell, who was one of the head people of the organization, his father was a Presbyterian preacher who started KKK on Stone Mountain, Georgia. Yeah. Oh, and so he gets up there and he says, you know, Reverend Thompson, and then he speaks to the crowd, he says, I want y'all to forgive me and my family for what happened here on Stone Mountain, Georgia. And man, that was, I mean, everybody was praising God. Tears were coming. I mean, these were tears of joy. People were hugging each other. And I said, you know, this has got to go back to Charleston. We just got to take this back to Charleston. So that's where the idea came from. That's where the vision came from One Humanity Charleston.
And it really all boils down to forgiveness.
Forgiveness, yeah.
We'll be back right after this break with more Living Local Carolina.
Well, thanks for joining us today on Living Local Carolina. I'm so excited to be rejoined by Quadre Stuckey. How are you doing?
I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here. Nice to see you again. Thank you.
Of course, of course. We've got a lot to talk about. He's obviously brought some stuff to show us today. But give me an update on what you've been doing for the last couple months.
Well, I mean, life's been amazing. I've been doing my shows. I published a new book. I have new artwork. I also got engaged recently too, so that's new. That's exciting. And you know, I'm just getting ready for what 2024 has to bring and offer. So I'm excited for that too.
And one thing I know about you is you do a ton of research.
Yes.
So that took a lot to go into this book, huh?
Yes, it is. So this is my new book right here, Gullah Paintings 3. So inside the actual book, it's an art educational book for children. In the book, I actually talk about the history of Gullah. I also talk about, you know, the seafood culture, where we do a lot of shrimping, a lot of red rice, a lot of okra. I talk about a lot of the superstitions like the bottle trees, the boo hag, the haint blues. And I talk about the artwork, because a lot of people love my artwork. So I talk about the artwork and then the spirituality and the connections we have to Barbados and our architecture. So this is a very good book to add to your collection if you don't have a book collection. This is a good piece to start with a book collection.
So for people who may not know who you are,
Yes.
the very few people out there,
Yes.
talk to me about your art, how you got into art, and where you draw inspiration from.
So my art is based upon my culture, Gullah Geechee culture. And what Gullah Geechee culture is pretty much the enslaved Africans that were brought over from different parts of West Africa, the Ivory Coast and Gold Coast. They were isolated on sea islands like through the Carolinas and, you know, like Myrtle Beach, area where we're at now. And pretty much it's just us staying closest to our West African heritage. So that's why I draw a lot of my inspiration from when it comes to like my paintings. I like to use a lot of bright, bold, tropical colors, because when you look at the work, I want you to feel excited. I want you to feel happy. I want you to feel good about yourself. And you know, I do a lot of paintings on women because women played a big role in my life. Like, you know, my mother, my grandmother, and my aunts. So that's like where a lot of my inspiration comes from. Also just that everyday low country lifestyle, like being by the beach, fishing, shrimping, you know, just enjoying the scenery with a loved one. So that's where it comes from.
Okay. So when you were finding inspiration for your book, doing the research, was there anything that you've learned along the way that kind of shocked you or surprised you a bit?
Yeah, so there was certain things that I didn't know about certain superstitions. So for example, like we have something called like the boo hag that rides you at night when you're asleep and you can't move. So really scientifically it's called when you sit there and you can't move but you're awake. Yeah, sleep paralysis.
It's happened to me before.
But our name for it is boo hag. So that's just kind of like the translation when it comes to our culture to scientifically they're calling it sleep paralysis. So that was something, you know, that kind of stuck out to me, showing how close those things kind of, you know, combine and come together.
I've been visited by that before.
Ooh,
it's pretty scary.
It is. You're up, you can't move. It's like you're in a scary movie, a horror flick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, tell me about the bottle trees. I don't know the superstition behind that.
So what you put blue bottle trees in your yard. The reason why is it sucks in the evil spirit. So let's say like if a hag tries to come and get you, instead of getting into the house, you know, to put you in that paralysis, it'll actually go into the blue bottle tree and then it gets locked in there. And then when the sunlight comes out in the daytime, it'll actually burn up in the sun. And then sometimes, like, people say they hear superstition of, like, it whistling outside. That's really like the wind hitting the bottle at a certain angle, and it's sounding like the boo hag was captured inside of it.
Spooky.
Yes.
Interesting. All right, we have to talk about sweetgrass baskets, of course.
Definitely.
Huge, huge, huge.
Yes.
All across the Low Country and here in the Grand Strand.
Always, yes. So I had to bring in one of sweetgrass
Beautiful.
baskets. Yes.
Beautiful.
So what the sweetgrass basket actually consists of is sweetgrass, bulrush, pine needle, and then it's an old West African sewing tradition that we still carry today. And if you can notice, each sweetgrass has its own specific pattern and design on it. And then it was used traditionally to transport rice, fruits, vegetables, and sometimes sewn tight enough it could transport and hold water.
Because they're very strong.
Don't forget to like our page on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. How to use the QR code. Just open the camera app on your smartphone, iPad, or tablet. Point your device at the QR code so the QR code appears on your screen. Your device will recognize the QR code and show you a notification. Click that notification and you'll come to our website. Living Local Carolina, weekday mornings at 9:30 on WBTW News 13.